nga ba jingni de chen zhi ge nang zhou ji de ren chen wen chu zhe ge ba ra nang xi de jin ni xi wo chi wom zhu ni xi ni ji ni nang dan ram zi ni xi sim ji yin ni xi nga ba rap de ga wi jiang de de nga chen nga yi rang jin yang ge song de dang yon den chen le de 그 소 정금 예셔nga 몸진지든 특기 개발 상천 체익직 니비 냥부 겐 데르터 롱키 장네 지르네 장남스 롱슈 조크 넘버 năng친 부 지베 너르시더 톰바 소즈르나 개발 동스 몸진지든 상디르동고 좀마 넘버 코드 랑진 직니 데르터 나와연 텀몸도레 예르코르 경위 버 동남 소수 셈 피케드 창르지르 송 데넵 가르잔 데이 드르시 งู르 상기르 남츠 데르트르 담바르테 구치도 만남 직당 버통보 롱텀 베네 람 첩처 람 척측처 장메도 조톱 샹 샹칩 닙시르 연 디나 츠른드 돈기 공부로 종 상계 특지 즉슴 남주 시 나소 탑친 몽부 판데임zat장당 돈바 츠르웬 로근기 타이 레공 샹칩 통 샹칩 삼통 전 게리션 르버 남츠 된자고 츠른드 투네 먹는 따지르 바 데더미르든 직든 공부를 겨 타바 친부 망업 담주 유진 림보치 음졸리 로비톤의 장금 넘버 그룹 레거티 니파고 下面我们讲那个
To liberate all sentient beings, let's generate the supreme bodhicitta. Now let us continue with our class on the wish-fulfilling treasury. We have already concluded our first chapter. Currently, we're studying the second chapter, which mainly discusses about the manifested world. In this chapter, it includes two aspects. The first one is the world that tames and the world, inanimate and animate world to be tamed. Last class, we've already talked about from the pores of Vajrayana Buddha, there rains down the fragrant water and radiates infinite light, which then forms the magnificent lotus essence world. This kind of flower essence world in the Mahayana teachings is a very unique cosmology. This particular teaching is not shared by the common vehicle and the Hinayana teachings. However, this particular description of the flower essence world is described in detail in the Tantrayana teachings. Also, we talked about how in the Samadhi mudra of Vajrayana Buddha, there is an ocean of fragrant water, and in that ocean there is one lotus flower, and around that lotus flower there are numerous infinite worlds. And in the center of that flower, in the stamen, there is a 25-leveled world. All the way between the 1st to the 12th level, we've already covered the names of each world and the names of the Buddhas. Now let's discuss the 13th level. The 13th level is very much correlated to us because we are going to discuss the Saha world, which is the 13th level world. I believe the Sangha members over here, probably many of you have never heard of the descriptions like such or ever read information like this. Maybe after reading this for the first time, you may be quite in awe or feel dazed or difficult to process this information, which is quite normal because we need to prepare our mind to understand that the Buddha's Pure Lands are inconceivable for our conceptual mind. The cosmos, the space, the world is infinite. If we will try to use the very limited conceptual mind to measure the infinite space and the infinite pure lands of the Buddhas, it's quite beyond our imagination and conception. The cosmos that is described by the Buddha, it has two aspects. One is time and the other is space. It is limitless. And that is why in this particular description, when we look at the Buddha's field, they are limitless. And many of the mundane beings would think, oh, that is not acceptable. We have to be able to understand it. In fact, for those people who studied all the way to PhD or postdoctorate degrees, and they would not be able to fathom it. Don't even mention our wisdom compared to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas or the great accomplished ones. So whenever we receive this teaching, we need to develop a sense of a pure mind and a great sense of respect to understand this teaching. Now, the 13th world, it is the Saha world. In the Saha world, the sentient beings harbors a great complexity of the three poisons. Therefore, it is difficult for the sentient beings to endure. According to the auto-commentary, it says that because the sentient beings had to bear the karma and afflictions, which is difficult to bear, therefore it is called the land of endurance. Another way of explaining the title or the name for this world, which means endurance, is that the sentient beings usually would be able to bear their own karma and afflictions. When there are difficult karma and afflictions that arise from their own mind stream, they're able to endure it. However, when harm comes from the others, even just a little bit of slandering or beating or any of the disrespect cannot be endured. Therefore, this land is also called the land of endurance. The Bodhisattvas, though, they came to the Saha world to attain enlightenment. Therefore, they can engage in all kinds of ascetic practices, and they would be able to endure all the karma and afflictions. But for sentient beings, the mundane beings, they don't really care about their afflictions within their own mind stream, such as aggression and desire. They have no intention to work with that. However, when they are attacked by the others of the others' afflictions, then they can't endure at all. This is our world, the Saha world, the world of endurance. In fact, on this level, on the 13th level, in between the levels, there are still many worlds in between. For example, there's the world called the pervasiveness in the east, and then the world of consistency of the south, and the world of parting from defilement in the west. And in the north, there's a world called pervading joy. The four worlds are described to be the worlds that's around the four directions, but in other sutras, it is described that there are oceans of worlds still, even in between all of those worlds and the Saha world. And then let's look at the 14th level. The 14th level is called undefiled radiance world. The 15th is the jewel adornment. the jewel adornment, supreme adornment world. And in this world, the Buddha's name is without attachment, wisdom Buddha. The 16th level, the world is called beyond defilement world. Residing there is the auspicious banner Tathagata. On the 17th level, there is the land called manifesting immaculateness. The Buddha's name is pervading manifestations, space radiance Buddha. This is 17th, and the 18th is radiating jewel light world. The Buddha's name is Fortunate Clouds Noble Tathagata. The 19th level, the Supreme Brightness world. The Tathagata living there is named Illuminating Lamp Tathagata. The 20th level is the Shining Forth world, and then the Buddha's name is Light Adornment Tathagata. And the 21st level, there is the world of radiating light world. The Buddha's name is Pervasive Seeing Tathagata. On the 22nd level, there is the radiating light adornment world. And the Tathagata's name is King of Light Rays Tathagata. The 23rd level, there is the world named Light Retaining World. The Buddha's name is Pervasive Light Tathagata. The 24th level, there's the land called Wondrous Adornment World. The Buddha's name is Abundant Flowers Tathagata. On the 25th level, this is the world called Color and Hue Supreme Joy world. The Buddha's name is Supreme Joy Auspiciousness Buddha. So now we've seen all the 25 levels. I think according to the Avatamsaka Sutra, there are lots of pictures depicting the different worlds and different Buddhas. But I believe in the Avatamsaka Sutra, there are 20 levels instead of 25. Whenever you have time, I think it would be good to compare the different names and the different worlds over there. Now let's look at why there are 25 levels instead of 26 or 21. So why 25? Why are we so sure that there are 25? Over here it says that since it carries the nature of 5 by 5, also goes to the body, speech, mind, and virtue, as well as activity. The body of body, the 25 worlds. Saha, mind of mind, supreme land. Great sacred teaching adorns the treasure of certainty in the very lifetime. This is quite an important verse. Over here, it explains why there are 25 lands, 25 worlds. In fact, the body, speech, and mind of the Tathagata can be divided into the various wisdoms. Because we would say that the 5 aggregates of the Buddha are the wisdom aggregates. This is also recognized and shared in the common vehicle. In that case, the Buddha has 25 types of wisdom. From the category, if we were to categorize them, we can categorize them into the body, speech, mind, quality, and activity. Each then has another 5. How are they divided into 5 each then? According to the commentary of the Clear Realization, where it states that the 6 paramitas can be further divided into, for example, the generosity paramita has the generosity of precepts, generosity of patience, generosity of diligence, generosity of meditation, generosity luminosity of wisdom. In this way, the 6 paramitas can further be multiplied to 36. Now, when it comes to the wisdom of the Buddha, there are the body, speech, mind, quality, and activity, which then each of them can be multiplied by the 5 of them again, and then that corresponds to the 25 levels. We can start all the way from the top of the 25th level. The first one would be the body of body, body of mind, body of speech, body of quality, and body of activity. So it counts from the top to the bottom. These 5 are associated to body. This is located around the face, the head and the face area of the Vairochana Buddha. After that, then we can see the worlds of speech. So there is the speech of body, speech of speech, speech of mind, speech of quality, speech of activity world. These 5 locates around the throat center of Vairochana Buddha. Usually, whenever we count the 5 centers of the body, it is the head that correlates to the body, and then throat that correlates with speech, and heart center correlates to the mind, the mind, and the navel correlates to quality, and then the sacred center correlates to activity. And then we're looking at the mind center, or the mind worlds. That is the minds of body, mind of speech, mind of mind, and mind of quality, and mind of activity. Out of the mind worlds, or the worlds that correlates to the mind of Vairochana Buddha, there are the 5 worlds, and the Saha worlds, if you remember, we locate at the 13th level. There are 12 of the other worlds above us and 12 below us. We're right in the center. Therefore, it is called, Saha world is called the mind of mind world. That is why we have the great Vajrayana teaching, because we're located at the center, at the heart center of Vairochana Buddha. This is the mind of mind, heart of heart. That is why we can see Vairochana Buddha bestows the special love to Saha world. This is our Saha world. Now, after that, the quality of body, quality of mind, quality of body, quality of speech, quality of mind, quality of activity. These 5 worlds are located close to the navel center, and then at the sacred center there is the activity of body, of speech, of mind, of quality of activity. They're close to the sacred center. These 25 worlds, or 25 levels, they sit on top of the 1,000-petal lotus, which locates in the ocean of fragrant water in the mudra of Vairochana. Nowadays, in mainland, in fact, in mainland tradition, there is this way of presenting the picture. For example, they would draw each of the Vairochana. They would draw a Vairochana sitting over there, and then holding this Samadhi mudra. And then there is the world of flower essence. The flower essence land. And for each of them, there are the correlating names. So we can see that the mind of mind world. This is the Saha world, which is the most supreme world. And in this world, there is the great Vajrayana teaching that would bring certainty in the liberation in one lifetime or in the very lifetime. So in Saha world, there is the treasure of certainty that adorns the Saha world. Therefore, it is indeed really supreme. So now we are reborn in the Saha world. How very special. I really hope that you can spare more time to contemplate upon the supreme opportunity for reborn in this Saha world out of all the immeasurable worlds. Now we're here in this human realm. On one hand, we may have karma and afflictions, which sometimes makes us suffer a lot. But on the other, we have opportunities to serve the others. We have opportunity to encounter the great Vajrayana teaching. We should be so honored about that. Now the next part talks about how the Buddha tames the sentient beings. Abiding in the base of Sambhogakaya world, perfect enjoyment kaya nanam chimpo, manifesting into all kinds of teachers that tames beings. The worlds over here, in fact, they are the Sambhogakaya worlds that's manifested. So the Sambhogakaya Buddhas, they would rely on these worlds as the base. And in this world, there is the perfect enjoyment kaya, the Sambhogakaya of Nanam Chimpo. Nanam Chimpo, sometimes we would say, we would use the word Nanam Chimpo, sometimes we would use the word Vajrayana. There are different names. But Nanam Chimpo over here, in the Sambhogakaya worlds, he could manifest into all kinds of teachers to tame beings, because the Sambhogakaya would be able to radiate infinite lights, and at the tip of the infinite lights, they would manifest into infinite Nirmanakaya, such as Shakyamuni Buddha. But there are hundreds of thousands and billions of Nirmanakaya Buddhas. When I read into the Brahmajala Sutra, it says that I, Vajrayana, sitting at the platform of the lotus, surrounded by thousands of lotuses, and then again manifested, there are thousands of Shakyamuni Buddhas manifested on them. So there are thousands of lotuses floating around and thousands of Shakyamuni Buddha. And in the later part, it also says that in each of the flowers, there are the hundreds of billions of worlds. And in each of the worlds, there is a Shakyamuni Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree and attained the Buddhahood, attained enlightenment at the same time. But according to the 80 volumes of Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that Vajrayana Buddha also relied on the ocean-like Buddhas in the past, and then made the aspiration as vast as the ocean. And then he was able to manifest all kinds of pure lands to benefit sentient beings. So Vajrayana Buddha used to make this aspiration, and because he made this aspiration to manifest the infinite worlds to benefit infinite sentient beings, he is able to do so. Also, I think there is an offering verse in mainland where it made offering to Vairochana Buddha, who has the perfect enjoyment body, and then the Shakyamuni Buddha, who had the hundreds of billions of manifestations, and then Amitabha and the Maitreya Buddha. Do you know how to chant that? How do you chant it? Do you know how to? Do you know who composed this? Yes, I'm aware this is the chant before lunch. But do you know who composed this? I know many monasteries chant this, but I'm not sure who composed it. Anyhow, in this chanting, it says that the Dharmakaya, Vairochana, and the Sambhogakaya, Mahavairochana. So the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirvanakaya is a bit different than what we've studied here. Maybe it's just the names are different according to Avatamsaka Sutra. We can't say that a name can. We can't say that only. There's only one name associated with a certain person or a certain Buddha. There are various kinds of manifestations, and there are various kinds of explanations according to Mahayana teachings. For example, certain Dharmakaya or Sambhogakaya, they have different names. It could be explained in such a way, or it could be understood in such a way. Now let's look at the verse where it says that, especially the 3,000 Saha realm, the brilliant lamp that adorns the 1,000 Buddhas manifest at the same time out of the one nature. So the Vairochana Buddha, in order to liberate all sentient beings, especially the beings in the Saha world, he manifested into thousands of Buddhas. Therefore, the 1,000 Buddhas are the manifestation of Vairochana. The names can be different, and the teachings can be different, such as the methods of taming beings are different. It says that the white inside the white lotus, it manifested the 1,000 princes, and all of them made the aspiration of bodhicitta. So they manifested forth to benefit sentient beings, also to manifest in such a way of coming to full enlightenment and become 1,000 Buddhas. carrying out various kinds of activities. According to the Sutra of the Father meeting the Son, it is stated that the 1,000 Buddhas in the good kalpa each of the Buddha are all the manifestation of Vairochana Buddha. They're just a manifestation. In order to liberate a sentient beings, sometimes we would say that there is the supreme Nirmanakaya, there is the Nirmanakaya coming through birth, and Nirmanakaya of various kinds. In fact, all of these kinds of Nirmanakayas are all manifestations as well. The 1,000 Buddhas of the good kalpa, as well as the 2 bodhisattvas, whenever we talk about the 7 Buddhas and the 4 Buddhas, some of the 7 Buddhas are included in the good kalpa, some of them are not included in the good kalpa, but there's no conflicts about it. We should be aware that sometimes we would chant the verses of praising the 7 Buddhas, and in some of the monasteries we would practice the 7 Buddhas. The 7 Buddhas indeed have great merits. Whenever we make supplication, we can supplicate to the 7 Buddhas, and some of the monasteries they would build the 7 Buddhas. When it comes to the enlightenment of Shakyamuni Buddha, there are the various views about it. We've studied it in the other teachings as well. For example, in the history of the Nyingma Buddhism and in the Treasury of various philosophies, according to Longchenpa, there are lots of very detailed explanation of how Shakyamuni Buddha attained Buddhahood. In general, there are the 4 different views. The first one is according to the Shravakas. The Shakyamuni Buddha started off being a mundane being and then accumulated merits and then continuously engaged in practice and finally attained Buddhahood at the Vajrasana in India. And then the Mahayana, the common vehicle where it talks about how Shakyamuni Buddha came down to the human realm from Tushita heaven and then manifested into the 12 forms and then practiced in the 6 years of ascetic practices and then went to Vajrasana and then attained realization. But he was a 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva and finally attained the Vajra-like Samadhi, which then destroyed the Maras as well as all the subtle obscurations of knowledge and then attained full Buddhahood. This is according to the common vehicle. Then, according to the uncommon vehicle of the Sutrayana teachings, where it says that he was already a 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva, but after the 6 years of ascetic practice, he in fact already attained Buddhahood throughout the 6 years of ascetic practice. And after he attained Buddhahood, he went to the densely arrayed Pure Land and attained and manifested the form of the Buddha. So through the power of ascetic practice, he attained Buddhahood in the densely arrayed Pure Land. After that, he came back to the Bodhi tree and then tamed the Mara, attained enlightenment, and then started turning the wheel of Dharma. I remember that I went to southern province of Yunnan, and then I saw the mural of a temple where there are the 12 characteristics or 12 the 12 stages of attaining Buddhahood, or the 12 stages of Buddha's life. I can't really remember which one was missing, but I assume it was the nirvana part was missing because people usually associate nirvana to death and people don't really like it. But the other 11 depictions were really good. So that's the third point of view. They think that Shakyamuni Buddha attained Buddhahood in the densely array Pure Land and then manifested the attainment of enlightenment at Vajrasana. And then, according to the Vajrayana point of view, it says that, in fact, Shakyamuni Buddha has already attained Buddhahood infinite kalpas ago in the densely arrayed Pure Land. And then he came to Saha world, enters into the womb, and then there's the 12 stages or the 12 characteristics of attaining the Buddhahood. But those are simply just a play that manifested to show us. Those are simply a play. So over here, we need to be aware that there are lots of different point of view on the enlightenment of the Buddha. According to Uttara Tantra Shastra, for example, there are the 12 characteristics, and then there's the description in the Lotus Sutra as well as the Jewel Heap Sutra. It talks about how the Buddha had already attained enlightenment and already liberated infinite sentient beings in various Pure Lands. And then he came to the Saha world, and he manifested in such a way that he started to make the aspiration as a mundane being, and then there's this process of attaining enlightenment. After 3 Asamkhyas, then he finally arrived at a stage where he manifested the 12 characteristics of attaining enlightenment. However, we should be aware that the Buddha had already attained enlightenment, especially if you consider yourself as a Shakyamuni Buddha. Of course, you can agree to the various kinds of point of view, but the most absolute view of viewing Shakyamuni Buddha is that the Buddha had already attained enlightenment and then came to the Saha world to manifest the process of attaining enlightenment again. This is quite a unique description even in the Vajrayana, even in the Tantras. I'm sure you would feel this is quite a unique and very fresh point of view. According to now the textual outline, says that now we need to eradicate the doubts. Many people would probably feel that while at first there was 1,000 princes that made the aspiration and then attained the enlightenment. Now let's look at the next textual outline. According to Mipa Rinpoche, it is to eradicate your doubts. According to the common vehicle, it says that the Yukogyan, the king, he has 1,000 sons who made the aspiration to attain Buddhahood. According to some of the Sutrayana and the Outer Tantra teachings, usually it is considered that the 1,000 Buddhas of good kalpa, they were the 1,000 sons of the king. And then they made aspiration, then attained enlightenment. According to the White Lotus Sutra and Lotus Sutra, where it's talked a little bit about it, but not too much. The most extensive description of that was in the Karuna Pundarika Sutra. The story was explicitly explained in that sutra. The story, I think you're quite clear about it. It was inconceivable, the infinite and infinite kalpas ago. Whenever we tell stories to each other in Tibet, we would lit a fire at night, and then we circle around and sit over there and take turns to tell stories. So we would then start to give stories, and started with na. It means long time ago. And then when it's long time ago, and finally they can't even remember how long ago, people would listen to their story, but since it's so long ago, but they can't remember any story because they can't make up any story anymore. Anyhow, it is said that a long time ago there was one kalpa. That kalpa is called the manifested wondrous kalpa. In that kalpa, there was a world that's called the adornment world, and in that world there was a king. There was a Tathagata whose name is Infinite Merit Jewel Adornment King Tathagata. At that time, there was a king whose name is the country protecting king. He's a Chakravartin. He could enjoy all kinds of wealth, and he had 7 cabinets, and he had 700,000 concubines. Many people would think that Shakyamuni Buddha had 60,000 concubines. That's too much. And it is not logical. But I think when it comes to lots of the history, the several thousand, several hundreds, there used to be concubines numbering thousands or hundreds. But in India, the numbers sometimes tend to be rather quite vague, not necessarily very concise. 700,000 or 60,000 of concubines. I'm not sure back then they had 60,000 of women in their country, but it's very difficult to say. On another hand, it could be a sense of chauvinism back then. If you remember the story of Mahapajapati when she got ordained, and at that time there was the prediction that the Dharma teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha will have an increment of the resemblance period. Some said that it is because of the afflictions of female is more than that of the male. But I think for male, there are lots of aggression too. Same as desire. Usually people would say that the female has more desire, but male has lots of desire. Look at those kings, they have so many concubines. But throughout history, not many women had so many husbands, but the kings had lots of wives. But from a different aspect, maybe in terms of jealousy, maybe in terms of lots of those small afflictions, there are some difference between the female mentality to the male mentality. But the Buddha, in terms viewing the gender equality, I think there's a great sense of equality, because the Buddha said that in the sutra, the name is not important, the lineage is not important, or the family is not important. The only important thing is the precepts, what kind of precepts you uphold. The bhikshus or bhikshunis, those precepts are the most important, not valuing the different genders. People may say that, well, why do Buddhist teachings refer to the impurity of the female body? That is very much based on the audience back then. The teaching teaching was given to a specific group of audience. But when it comes to the application of those teachings, when we look at the Jewel Garland Shastra, where you would say that, where you would see the description of the female body, if you were to say the female body is impure, then the male body is also impure. So the Buddha's teaching had to go with the historical trend at that time. It is only very recently the female started to gain social stature and freedom in the society. So similarly, in the history of India, at that time, Shakyamuni Buddha had to give the teachings to fit into the mindset of the disciples at that time, because the social custom is like such. But when we look at the teachings, in fact, the practice of the male can be practiced by the female as well. And similarly, the female practices can be practiced by male as well. Anyhow, over here it says about 700,000 concubines. Maybe it's just a vague number. It is just trying to say that there are infinite and infinite world, or there's a great numbers of concubines. Sometimes whenever we say that, oh, infinite, there's the infinite or numerous people died in this incident, not that there's numerous or infinite people died in certain incidents, rather it is a vague expression by saying that many people had died. Some of the numbers could be quite vague, maybe not very concise. And I heard it's not just in the Buddhist tradition, in Christianity and other religions too. So over here, it says that the king had 1,000 sons. Each of them are very wise and brave. Out of the 1,000 sons, there were 2 sons who manifested out of the embrace of his concubine, or 2 concubines. These 2, one of them is Manjushri Bodhisattva, and the other one is Indra. Now, that's 1,000 plus 2, so 1,002. And then the Tathagata, at that time, the infinite quality, jewel, adornment king Tathagata in that Pure Land, in order to liberate sentient beings, he guided them to generate bodhicitta and then give them teachings of Dharma. And then most of them had attained the Dharma of forbearance. At that time, the princes requested the Buddha to bestow them the prediction and see when they will become a Buddha and who's going to attain enlightenment first. The Buddha then decided to put all of their names into a jeweled vase and then take out their names one by one. So they practiced for 7 days and made various kinds of offerings, and eventually he pulled out the names one by one. The first name being pulled was the later Krakuchanda Buddha. The second one was Kanakamuni Buddha, and then the third one was Kashyapa Buddha. The fourth one, whose name was also Prince Siddhartha, and later became Shakyamuni Buddha. And then after the 1,000 names were drawn, the last name was drawn. The last Buddha would be the Rudita Buddha, who is going to be the last Buddha of the good Kalpa. And then the 2 manifested prince out of the 2 concubines. One of them was Manjushri, and the other one was Indra. So Manjushri made the aspiration to turn the wheel of the Mahayana teaching, and the Indra made the aspiration to turn the common vehicle teachings as well as the other teachings. According to the Tathagata's inconceivable secret great Mahayana Sutra, it says that these two princes, one of them is the Vajrapani Bodhisattva, and the other one is the Brahma king. At that time, the Brahma king, the Brahma then said that I will make the aspiration that when each of you attain enlightenment and become the Buddha, I will request you to turn the wheel of the Dharma. And then the Vajrapani Bodhisattva made the aspiration saying that when each of you become the Buddha, I shall come to protect your teachings with a Vajra, with indestructible Vajra. He made such an aspiration. The particular names then are different compared to the names again. But I think you can understand that in the common vehicle, we've already said that Longchenpa stated that the common vehicles would state in such a way, and the other vehicles or the other teachings would state in a different way. There are some similarities and some differences. When I was making the translation, of the extensive biography of Shakyamuni Buddha, it states that the Buddha made the various aspirations in front of the different Buddhas, in front of different teachers. And according to different sutras, there are the different names of the different teachers as well. I believe some master explained it that some of the teachings said that Shakyamuni Buddha made the aspiration here and made the aspiration there. But in fact, some of the aspirations were the aspiration of bodhicitta. Some of them are the aspiration of the aspirations that's made at the beginning of the path of accumulation, and some of them were at the beginning of the path of joining, and some of them are made at the different stages of the path of joining, such as the stage of forbearance or at the stage of warmth. That's why there are so many different ways of making aspirations, just as nowadays there are people who would go to their teacher and say that, oh, I would like to make this aspiration, I would like to make the other aspiration, and then later they would go to a different teacher and said, oh, no, the other aspiration I made in front of the other teacher doesn't count. I'll make a different aspiration in front of you. But of course, Shakyamuni Buddha won't do that. He made his promises and made his aspirations, and then he accomplished all of them. So, as it is stated that in the common vehicle, it says that the 1,000 princes were, they all made aspirations. But over here, we're talking about how all of the princes were the manifestation of Vairochana. Is it contradictory to one another? It is not. That is why Longchenpa particularly explained why they're not contradictory. Over here, the verse says that in front of all the to-be-tamed beings in the good kalpa, the Buddhas manifested in such a way in the miraculous display, bestowing the predictions for the lower beings to enter. The 1,000 princes will indeed definitely attain enlightenment. The innumerable humans and celestial beings will attain the Dharma of forbearance. For such reason, one shall uphold the sacred meaning. Over here, it says that in the common vehicle, it says that 1,000 mundane beings made the aspiration. But over here, it says that these 1,000 Buddhas are simply the manifestation of Vairochana Buddha. Is it contradictory to each other? In fact, it is not of contradictory. Rather, it has a profound, deep, and sacred meaning behind it. the different Buddhas with the different names can liberate the sentient beings can liberate the various sentient beings in this good kalpa, the different sentient beings of various capacity. Some of the beings can attain liberation through the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, some by the Shakyapa Buddha, some by the Krakuchamba Buddha. So based on the different capacity of sentient beings, the Buddha can manifest out of various forms and then liberate them. That's one aspect. Another aspect is that for the lower capacity ones, the kind of sentient beings with rather low capacity of wisdom, they are very fearful to generate the mind of bodhicitta because they don't trust that they can attain liberation. However, by looking that the 1,000 Buddhas used to be mundane beings, now they can also generate a bodhicitta and then attain liberation. By having that hope, by having that role model, they would be able to eradicate their weak mind and then start to accumulate merit and accumulate all kinds of provisions, such as practice generosity and start practicing all kinds of virtuous deeds to then attain liberation. On top of that, lots of celestial beings and the human beings, they would be able to attain the forbearance of non-arising. For that reason, we can see the Sutrayana teaching given in such a way has a sacred meaning behind it. Therefore, we should also uphold this sacred meaning. So the Tantrayana teachings are correct. And the Sutrayana teachings has a sacred meaning behind presenting the 1,000 Buddhas in such a way as well. In the Jewel Heap Sutra, it says that the Shakyamuni Buddha once said that he used to be the Tathagata named so-and-so and started giving teachings. And in the Lankavatara Sutra also, it says that, when Shakyamuni Buddha used to be the Buddha Krakuchamba, so on and so forth. And lots of people would have lots of doubts saying that, no, this is not absolute teaching, this is the relative teaching. But indeed, we have to understand that Shakyamuni Buddha, Krakuchamba Buddha, the Vairochana Buddha, they are simply the manifestation of the one Buddha. This is the most absolute. If you don't understand it and started to twist the teaching, then you don't understand that sacred teaching. Sometimes, for example, when we hear the teacher saying that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, and then as a disciple who don't want to listen to the teacher at that time, they would twist the teachings around, and this is quite dangerous. If you remember, there are the 5 types of misunderstanding of the Dharma teachings. For example, there are the reverse knowing, there is the mistaken knowing, and there are the different ways of mistakenly taking the teaching. We have to pay close attention so that we don't make those mistakes. In fact, over here it says that there is really only one Buddha, and there's the other Buddhas are the manifestations. This is very reasonable and very logical too, and this is very normal according to the Vaipoya Sutra of Avatamsaka Sutra. It says that the one body can manifest into infinite Buddha, and infinite can be also one, knowing that the whole world is simply a manifestation. So this is the teaching. Some of you, if you had never heard of this and not able to accept it, and if you faint after class, don't be too afraid. You would definitely be able to understand it after. Now, the next part started to talk about the content as well as generate faith and the merit that's associated to it. Compassionate Buddha, in order to liberate the sentient beings from the 3 existence, therefore, the various kinds of skillful means are practiced in order to liberate, to benefit the sentient beings. So the Buddha's activity all of the Buddha's activity is to liberate sentient beings, to benefit sentient beings. We don't even need to mention about Buddha. A genuine spiritual teacher, all of their activities are to bring benefits to sentient beings as well. It is said that the Buddha's activity is only to bring happiness and peace to all sentient beings. Other than that, there is no other activities to the Buddha. So how do the Buddhas benefit sentient beings then? Manifest the teachers to fulfill the sentient beings' wishes, guiding them to the supreme fruition of Bodhi. The Tathagatas bestow blessings and manifest to this place. So the Buddhas, in order to benefit the sentient beings, manifest all kinds of world. Just as over here we can build a school, and in order to, the reason of building school is to help the students. So the Buddhas would then first manifest the world. After having this world, then the Buddhas would manifest the teachers. Now there's the world, there's the teachers that could guide the sentient beings, just like a wish-fulfilling jewel that could manifest, that could fulfill all the wishes of the sentient beings. This is one aspect of it. And then the other aspect is to bestow the three types of fruition according to their different interests. So all the phenomena is no other than the manifestation of the Tathagata's blessings. Let it be the Vairochana Buddha or the Shakyamuni Buddha, as long as it could be of benefit to the sentient beings, then there would be all kinds of skillful means to be manifested. And the Buddha's blessings can be infinite. They can infinitely manifest in all kinds of ways. Yesterday, when I was listening to the after-class discussion, some of the Sangha member asked, well, if the Buddha can manifest in such a way, how does the Saha world manifest it? I think they were having some very in-depth discussion, and very interesting too. It's quite important to have doubts and then to discuss about it. In order to tame the sentient beings, in fact, there needs to be a world that can tame the sentient beings, as well as a teacher that can tame sentient beings. Then the teacher, are they the manifestations? Yes, you can say that they are the manifestations. There's an example saying that, for example, in this Pure Land, there are some of the mundane beings, and the mundane beings, could they be able to see the Pure Land and the pure Buddhas? Not necessarily. If you remember, during the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, there was one Brahmin who only perceives the Buddha as an ugly person with 9 types of ugly signs. The Buddha has this natural perfection, but the sentient beings cannot perceive it. Also, the Brahman can see the pure world, that is the Buddha's pure Saha world, but Shariputra cannot see it. So the Buddha, when he manifested this world, the sentient beings can have their own perceptions. At that time, the Buddha can manifest this impure world, and then slowly with the different kinds of ways to liberate the sentient beings. Just as whenever we build the school, then the students can come into the school, and then I can get a teacher, I can then provide the school, and then the students came from outside. Is that a good example? So just like that, the Vairochana Buddha has the resource, and then by making the school and then making the teacher, and then the various students were attracted to come to this place by their different karma. So slowly, the students can be tamed by the teachers. Okay, let's finish this chapter, otherwise it's going to take too long. The last part is the merit of taking faith in it. One who listens to this teaching with great faith and without any fear will swiftly become the protector of this world. So for the ones with wisdom, after listening to the Vairochana Buddha's Pure Land as well as the Saha world and the thousand Buddhas in the Good Kalpa, if one do not generate any fear, unlike some of people who had never heard the teachings of Mahayana teachings, they probably would feel really scared and sometimes quite in shock and maybe fainted after hearing such a vast description of cosmos, and even get very dizzy when there's the concept of the flower essence world. Though this person, if one person, though not completely understanding it, though still feeling confused, but having trust in it, then this person would definitely be able to attain liberation, attain accomplishment in a swift time, because the merit of generating faith is immeasurable. In Avatamsaka Sutra, it also says that after listening to the ocean-like Dharma teachings, if one did not generate the mind of fear, but generate the mind of faith, then this person will swiftly attain the fruition of Buddhahood. There are lots of teachings in Avatamsaka Sutra, such as the sentient being's mind is just like the specks of dust. The ocean's drops of water can be counted. Even if the space can be measured, the merits, the qualities of Buddha cannot be expounded to its extent. Cannot be expounded to its extent. I think this is such a wonderful teaching, because there are so much different complexity and myriads of minds of sentient beings, just like the specks of dust. If you can understand that, if you can have a number of the different drops of water, if you can measure even the space, but the Buddha's merits and qualities cannot be expounded. This is stated in the Avatamsaka Sutra. After listening to this teaching, if one were to develop joy, if one were to develop faith without any doubt, this person will definitely attain the supreme path, just like all the Buddhas. This world is so small. Do not trap yourself into this body, this house, into your little world, just as Ukraine and Russia right now, because they have not attained the realization of emptiness. If Putin and Zelensky can think about how vast this flower essence world, then why to put those poor citizens into such grave suffering? If they can study only if they can study the wish-fulfilling treasury. The previous 4 chapters are a bit difficult in the wish-fulfilling treasury, but in the later chapters, it gets a little bit easier. Anyhow, now we've completed the 2nd chapter.